भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन कृतयन्तस्तो हि भद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृच्छतं नाष्टप्रायश भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 21, titled Instructions by Maharaj Prithu, text number 34. Asab ihanek guno gunodvara pratag vidadravya guna kriyoktibihi sampadyate artashaya linga namabir vishuddha vijnana gana swarupada asaviva hanek guno gunodvara पृथग्विधा द्रव्यगुणाक्रियोक्तिभिः सम्पद्यते अर्थाश्रयलिङ्गनामभिर्विशुद्धविज्ञानगणस्वरूपदा. Multiple translation. Asau, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Iha, in this material world, Aneka, various, Guna, qualities, Aguna, transcendental, Advara, yajna, Pratakvida, varieties, Dravya, physical elements, Guna, ingredients, Kriya, performances, Uktibihi, by chanting different mantras, Sampadyate is worshipped, Artha, interest, Ashaya, purpose, Linga, form, Namabi, name, Vishuddha, without contamination, Vijnana, science, Ghana, concentrated, Swarupa, Taha, in his own form. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and not contaminated by this material world. But although he is concentrated spirit soul without material variety, for the benefit of the conditioned soul, he nevertheless accepts different types of sacrifice performed with various material elements, rituals, and mantras, and offered to the demigods under different names according to the interests and purposes of the performers. Purpose. For material prosperity, there are recommendations in the Vedas for various types of yajna, sacrifice. In Bhagavad Gita 3.10, it is confirmed that Lord Brahma created all living entities, including human beings and demigods, and advised them to perform yajna according to their material desires. Saha yajna prajasrishtva. These performances are called yajnas because their ultimate goal is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. The purpose of performing yajnas is to get material benefit, but because the aim is to simultaneously satisfy the Supreme Lord, such yajnas have been recommended in the Vedas. Such performances are, of course, known as karma kanda or material activities, and all material activities are certainly contaminated by three modes of material nature. Generally, the karma kanda ritualistic ceremonies are performed in the mode of passion, yet the conditioned souls, both human beings and demigods, are obliged to perform these yajnas because without them one cannot be happy at all. Vishwanath Chakravarti Tagore comments that these karmakanda ritualistic ceremonies, although contaminated, contain touches of devotional service because whenever there is a performance of any yajna, Lord Vishnu is given a central position. So this is very important because even a little endeavor to please Lord Vishnu is bhakti and is of great value. A tinge of bhakti purifies the material nature of the performances, which by devotional service gradually um, therefore, although such yajnas are superficially material activities, the results are transcendental. Such yajnas as Surya Yajna, Indra Yajna, and Chandra Yajna are performed in the names of the demigods, but these demigods are bodily parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods cannot accept sacrificial offerings for themselves, but they can accept them for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a departmental tax collector of a government cannot collect taxes for his personal account, but can realize them for the government. Any yajna performed with this complete knowledge and understanding is described in Bhagavad Gita as Brahmarpanam, or a sacrifice offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since no one but the Supreme Lord can enjoy the results of sacrifice, the Lord says that He is the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices. Bhoktaram yajnadabasam sarva loka maheshwaram. Sacrifices should be performed with this view in mind. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4:24, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. The performer of sacrifices must always keep in view that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas are meant to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishnur Aradhyate Pantha, Vishnu Purana 389. Anything material or spiritual done for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord is understood to be an actual yajna, and by performing such yajnas, one gets liberation from material bondage. The direct method of getting liberation from material bondage is devotional service, comprising the 9 following methods: Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Bhada Sevanam Achanam Mandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. Bhagavatam 7.5.23. The ninefold process is described in this verse as Vishuddha Vijnana Gana, or satisfying the Supreme Person of Godhead directly by transcendental knowledge, concentrated on the form of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This is the best method for satisfying the Supreme Lord. One who cannot take to this direct process, however, should take the indirect process of performing yajnas for the satisfaction of Vishnu or yajna. Vishnu is therefore called Yajnapati, Shriyapatim, Yajnapatim, Jagatpatim, Bhagavatam 2.9.15. The Supreme Personality of Godhead's deep scientific knowledge is concentrated to the supreme point. For example, medical science knows some things superficially, but doctors do not know exactly how things are. Krishna, however, knows everything. His knowledge is Vijnana Ghana because the defects of the material science. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Vishuddha Vijnana Ghana, concentrated transcendental knowledge. Therefore, even though he accepts Karma Kandya, materialistic yajnas, he always remains in a transcendental position. Therefore, the mention of Aneka Guna refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead's many transcendental qualities, for he is not affected by the material qualities. The different kinds of material paraphernalia or physical elements are also gradually transformed into spiritual understanding because ultimately there is no difference between material and spiritual qualities, for everything emanates from the Supreme Spirit. This is realized by a gradual process of realization and purification. One vivid example of this is Dhruva Maharaj, who took to meditation in the forest to achieve material benefit, but ultimately became spiritually advanced and did not want any benediction for material profit. He was simply satisfied with Lord. Ashaya means determination. Generally, a conditioned soul has the determination for material profit. But when these desires for material profit are satisfied through performance of yajna, one gradually achieves the spiritual platform. Then his life becomes perfect. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10 therefore recommends Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradhi Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purisham param. Everyone, whether a kama, a devotee, sarvakama, a karmi, or mokshakama, a jnani or yogi, is encouraged to worship the personality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the direct method of devotional service. In this way, one can get both material and spiritual profit simultaneously. End of report. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine नमस्ते सरस्वते देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादि पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. I humbly seek the blessings of all assembled Vaishnavas, and thank you for the opportunity to verify myself by summarizing from Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll try to summarize based on Srila Prabhupada's purport here, and please forgive if I add my own interpretation to this summary. So we are in this chapter called Instructions of Prithu Maharaj, and definitely as we are seeing, it's very instructive, and Prithu Maharaj is giving a summary of the main instructions um, to his citizens and prajas. So we know, as a quick summary, we know that um, um, we saw how the whole pastime with Indra ended, and then Supreme Lord, being satisfied with Prithu Maharaj's purity, he personally appeared, and then he gave instructions to Prithu Maharaj in the previous chapter. And then finally he asked Prithu Maharaj if he had wanted any benediction. And then Prithu Maharaj requested that he basically just gets bhakti, and then he just wanted to perform more and more bhakti to the Supreme Lord. And he only wished for pure devotional service and nothing else. So then Lord is more pleased with this mode of purity, and then he basically leaves the arena. And then we also saw the helper, Prithu Maharaj worshipped all the assembled Vaishnavas in the assembly along with the Supreme Lord. And then Supreme Lord, being very, very pleased, then leaves. And then in this chapter, we see how, again, Vidura is inquiring more about Prithu Maharaj. And then Maitri Muni is starting to explain more that Prithu Maharaj later performed another yajna, and then Prithu Maharaj is in this yajna um, is addressing his prajas and citizens, and a lot of very nice instructions are being kind of spoken here. So in this particular purport, Prabhupada talks about so many different things, and mainly the crux of this purport is the direct worship versus indirect worship of the Supreme Lord. This is very similar to how even whole Srimad Bhagavatam started, where we see Vyasadeva. He initially wrote all the Vedas, and he separated the Vedas. And although he was indirectly talking about the Supreme Lord in the Vedas, he was not completely feeling satisfied. And that's when Narada Muni appeared to kind of explain that although, oh Vyasadeva, you're trying to glorify the Supreme Lord, it's not direct, it's indirect, and that's why you're not feeling fully satisfied. So write something that you will where you can directly glorify the Supreme Lord and its pastimes, so that way you will be completely satisfied. And then Vyasadeva started writing Srimad Bhagavatam, and then that's when he was completely satisfied. So similarly here we see that, again, worshipping the demigods is this indirect method of worshipping the Supreme Lord. And as we have heard many times from different sections of Srimad Bhagavatam, the demigods are basically, so for example, and he's in charge of the cloud lightning. So awarded this position in this material world, the rains and providing
So
weather
your voice is cutting off in between. Like
Oh,
you come and go, and I think just last couple of minutes.
okay. Hopefully, it's better going forward. Um, so, so Indra is very wealthy, and then he lives in the heavenly planet. And so, if one wants to be blessed with good weather, so his agricultural activities will be a success, then he may worship Indra for this purpose. And if Indra is pleased, then he can send the clouds to the farmer, to the farmer's place, and then give nice rains. So the agricultural activities are successful. So, and also, if one worships Indra and thinks of him at the time of death, then he can be transferred to the heavenly planet where Indra lives, and also can live comfortably there. But we have to understand, and this is the message from Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, that Indra's powers are also limited. Beyond controlling the weather and ruling over this over his heavenly planet, he does not have any authority anywhere else. So, and again, this authority is given to him by Krishna. So, with a little contemplation, we can see that there are millions of demigods in charge of um, millions of or countless departments in the material world that basically affect us in our day-to-day lives. So if you want to individually worship each demigod and in trying to individually satisfy them is impossible. So um, uh, and that's where Prabhupada says that there is this direct path. And also in the indirect path, Prabhupada says that Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that these Karmakanda ritualistic ceremonies, although contaminated, contain touches of devotional service, because whenever there is a performance of any yajna, Lord Vishnu is given a central position. And I remember that in our family, whenever there was Ganapati Homa or other type of Rudra Homa, so always at the end of the yajna, the Brahmana who performs the yajna, he finally finishes that puja or yajna with this verse from which is also quoted in Shrimad Bhagavatam, that Kayena vacha manasendriyerva buddhyatmanava anusmat sabhavat paroti yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayami. So the translation says that in accordance with the particular nature one has acquired in conditioned life, whatever one does with body, words, mind, senses, intelligence, or purified consciousness, one should offer to the supreme thinking. This is for the pleasure of Lord Narayana. So, in other words, I mean, after performing any yajna for any demigod, basically the last thing that we say is that all that I did is for your pleasure, O Lord Narayana. So that's how we finish. And um, so basically, that's the point that is coming out of this purport, that although we may not realize, but all the sacrifices that we do for to demigods are ultimately going to the Supreme Lord. So, given that fact, so why not directly worship the Supreme Lord? And that's Prabhupada's point, that the direct method of getting liberation from material bondage um, is devotional service, comprising the 9 following methods: the Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Bhadasevanam, Achanam, Vandanam, Dhasyam, Shakyam, Atma Nivedanam. Um, and then Prabhupada says that this is the best method for satisfying the Supreme Lord. One who cannot take to this direct process, however, should take the indirect process of performing yajnas for the satisfaction of Vishnu. And Prabhupada always gave this example of the elevator approach versus the staircase approach. When if you have an opportunity to directly elevate through an elevator, why not take that instead of going via the steps, which is more cumbersome and slow? Um, and also, Prabhupada says that the quotes this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10, Akama sarva kamova moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena jeta purusham brahm. So this verse is very applicable, like, or practical, because I mean, even as practicing devotees, we may not have this pure devotion, or we may not have gotten rid of all the material desires we have. But again, the recommendation from Srimad Bhagavatam itself is that you may have material desires, you may have moksha desires, or you may be a pure devotee also, trying to be a pure devotee. So, in any case, just worship Supreme Lord Vishnu by the 9 processes of bhakti, especially for this Kali Yuga. And we're talking about yajna. The Kali Yuga, the yajna recommended is the Sankirtan yajna, and mainly the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And this is very powerful in this yajna, because chanting basically does 3 things. Firstly, it removes any past sins. So we may have performed so many sins, knowingly, unknowingly, and chanting is so powerful, is so pure, that it can eradicate any amount of sins that we may have accumulated. Chanting also is very glorious because it also removes the inclination to sin more. So one thing is that it removes the previous sins or past sins, but also it removes the inclination to sin, because we don't want to continue doing sins after God having removed the previous ones. And then the third benefit that chanting offers is to develop the love of God, because Prabhupada many times said that being sinless is not the goal, because even animals are sinless. I mean, they don't kill, they don't hurt people out of like envy or something, but it's just for their basic living or instincts. So that way they are not sinless. But humans, having given this um, intelligence, should utilize the birth to perform chanting, so one can develop this love of God. So that's the message of this kind of purport, or this verse, that we are so fortunate that we have this direct access to the Supreme Lord. We know the direct process to approach the Supreme Lord. And although we may have some material desires while practicing bhakti, we should still continue performing bhakti, because bhakti is so pure that it will slowly eradicate our desires, and we will develop the love of God. So we should be trying to practice this consistently, although it's challenging this time and age. With this, I'd like